Hello friends, welcome. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button and leave a comment. This means a lot to me and is a great support. Today, I bring you a unique historical event. Enjoy. British surrenders Fort Charlotte, March 14, 1780. Spanish General Bernardo de Gálvez attacked Captain Elias Durnford, garrison commander of Fort Charlotte, in what is now Mobile, Alabama, leaving Pensacola as the only British military hold in West Florida. The successor of O'Reilly in Louisiana had been, in 1770, Don Luis Gonzaga, who in 1776, much to the regret of his former subjects, was promoted to be Captain General of Caracas. On February 1st of the next year, Gálvez, the young colonel, entered on the duties of his office. He was only 21 years old, highly connected, and full of energy. Haldimand and Gage had been discussing the best method of invading Louisiana. And in the first year of his governorship, Gálvez, in turn, contemplated the conquest of their West Florida. He sent home to Spain, in July 1777, detailed reports on the fortifications of Mobile and Pensacola. However, although tensions were sometimes strained, no war was declared between England and Spain until 1779. There was no official alliance with the revolted colonies. But the Spanish agent Morales sent word to Washington about the planned invasion of West Florida. The Spaniards wanted the British conquerors of the southern colonies to be checked by the Americans, and Washington hoped the invasion would make Georgia and the Carolinas untenable for the English, whom Lincoln was instructed to keep engaged. In September 1779, immediately after taking the oath of office as Spanish governor before the council, Cabildo, amid great enthusiasm, Gálvez made a secret dash from New Orleans to the Mississippi forts and captured them successively before reinforcements could arrive. After 5 days, Fort Butte at the d'Iberville was stormed. Dixon had withdrawn his main force closer to Baton Rouge. At this post, he was attacked but repelled initial attempts at storming. After Gálvez undertook a deliberate siege, Dixon surrendered, giving up Baton Rouge and Fort Panmure at the Natchez. But his bravery secured full honors of war. The news of this traveled slowly, but one can imagine the consternation in Mobile in October. When the tidings arrived, a courier was sent to General John Campbell at Pensacola, but he dismissed the report as a Spanish ruse to draw him out of Pensacola. On October 23, another courier arrived, but Campbell still took the same view for a while. He gave orders to sail, then countermanded them, and hesitated. Eventually, he strengthened Pensacola but left Mobile to its fate. Fortunately for him, Gálvez was content that season with his Mississippi captures and returned to New Orleans to spend the winter making further preparations. A report shows that the garrison of Mobile consisted of 279 men, including Mr. Gordon, the minister, who was quite active, Commissary Thomas Strother, and the surgeon's mate, probably Dr. Grant. There were also 17 enslaved people serving as officers, servants, and 35 more, employed in various roles, whose owners later claimed compensation from the Crown. The troops included engineers, artillery, the 4th Battalion of the 60th Foot, 16 members of the United Provincial Corps of Pennsylvania and Maryland Loyalists, 52 volunteers from the inhabitants, 15 of whom deserted, and 21 artificers. Among the volunteers were Captain Walker's Provincial Dragoons and Captain Reese Militia, arriving in 3 canoes at a critical moment. On February 5, 1780, Gálvez sailed from Belize to Mobile with 2,000 men, consisting of regulars, militia, and a few companies of free black soldiers. A hurricane struck, stranding some of his 11 vessels and damaging provisions and ammunition. But, as with the Mississippi expedition, he was undeterred. Despite the imminent shipwreck, he persevered. On February 9, he captured the Victualler Brown Hall, a 16-gun vessel carrying presents from the ordnance ship, Earl of Bathurst for superintendent. Cameron's planned Indian Congress. Gálvez finally succeeded in landing in Mobile Bay just below Choctaw Point, probably near present-day Frascati. His landing was in such disorder that even Gálvez considered retreating by land, leaving behind baggage and artillery. However, upon learning that Campbell was not expecting him, he decided to press forward. Meanwhile, confusion in Mobile was even greater, and the citizens hurried into the fort. Gálvez erected 6 batteries north and west of the fort and began a brisk cannonade. The intervening houses were burned. One of them was the former home of Major Farmer, with valuable papers and possibly the church as well. On March 1st, from Choctaw Point, Gálvez sent a polite request in French to Durnford to surrender, stating that after a battle, he might not be able to grant such favorable terms. Durnford's manly reply was as follows: "I have the honor to acknowledge the receipt of Your Excellency's summons to surrender immediately the fort to Your Excellency's superior forces. The difference in numbers is undoubtedly in your favor, sir, but mine are far beyond Your Excellency's estimation. Were I to give up this fort upon demand, I should be regarded as a traitor to my king and country. My love for both and my own honor direct me to refuse surrendering this fort until I am convinced that resistance is in vain. The generosity of Your Excellency's mind is well known to my brother officers and soldiers, and should it be my misfortune to be added to their number, a heart full of generosity and valor will ever consider brave men fighting for their country as objects of esteem and not revenge." Campbell, on March 5th, sent the 60th Regiment and the next day the remainder of the Waldeck Regiment from Pensacola to relieve Mobile. This was probably the great good news Durnford mentioned. Campbell himself followed with Pennsylvanians and artillery, totaling 522 men. It was a march of 72 English miles through a wilderness without a single human dwelling. He arrived at Tensa on March 10th but spent too much time building rafts. Meanwhile, after several days, a breach had been made in the fort's walls. On the morning of March 14th, 1780, the garrison capitulated under the same terms that Dixon had obtained at Baton Rouge. Captain Durnford marched out his small command with flags and drums, grounding their arms outside the fort, with the officers retaining their swords. Hunger and the lack of reinforcement from Campbell contributed as much to the surrender as the cannonade. Only 1 man was killed outright, and 11 were wounded, 2 of whom later died. Durnford wrote, "No man in the garrison stained the luster of the British arms." Gálvez, upon seeing how small the garrison was that had resisted him for so long, was greatly mortified. However, he kept his agreement to transport them to a British port, where they were landed upon their promise not to serve against Spain or her allies for 18 months. Campbell's return march was described as a terrible journey. It rained almost continuously, and the troops had to wade through ankle-deep mud and ponds. They could only cross swollen streams in single file over fallen trees, and whoever slipped was lost. At night, they were surrounded by wild animals, with wolves howling frightfully.